Here we go. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report, and we're live right here on Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr. It's a beautiful Wednesday, January 22nd, and there's so much to talk about on today's show as we discuss the latest Niners news, rumors, and offseason storylines. Of course, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, as always, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. And here's what we have coming up. What is the latest on Robert Saleh? I'm going to bring you the latest here because is he going to get that Jacksonville Jaguars head coaching job? Does he want it? And if he doesn't want it, will he replace Nick Sorensen to be the Niners' next defensive coordinator? I want to go through a bunch of Niners draft targets based off of Mel Kiper's Big Board, ESPN's NFL draft analyst. And how about this? A surprise name for defensive coordinator. Could San Francisco target Pete Carroll, the former Seahawks and USC head coach? Well before Bill Belichick took over in New England, it was Pete Carroll over there in Foxborough. So I want to get into that. Some reporting from Tim Kawakami, longtime Bay Area sports reporter, and then we'll round out with the mailbag. Get those questions in right now. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. I want to start off with this. We already have 170 people watching live, and all you Niner fans out there, I know that you know ball. Who makes it to Super Bowl 59? Conference championship weekend coming up here in a few days, and we have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. Then we have the Philadelphia Eagles playing host to the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game. So who will make it to the Super Bowl? Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans a couple of Sundays from now. Let me know down in the comments section. I want to see what the people are saying. Black Mask. Nobody wants Chiefs against the Eagles. CG1 said Philadelphia. Melvin McGee said go Commanders. Matt Burgett said Buffalo. Wet Noodle, Washington Buffalo. Cerebral Assassin, Buffalo. Kimberly Harvison, go Niners, they're my favorite team. Yeah, but they're not playing this weekend, unfortunately. Matthew, Buffalo and Philadelphia. I want the Chiefs to lose so bad. And I'm like most of America, I want Kansas City to go down. Unfortunately, though, I think they're going to win. And I got Philadelphia taking down the Washington Commanders as the Commanders' magical season runs out of magic. Here's our Super Chat menu for today, by the way. All Super Chats will get a shout-out. I also want to push this. I have some Niner Red Jell-O shots. Anybody who sends in a $20 Super Chat, we're taking down some Jell-O shots here on the show. If we get to $100 total, I will do a shotgun. So I want 5 20s coming in throughout the live show, which means 5 Niner Jell-O shots, which then equals a shotgun. Let's have some fun. It's a Wednesday, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time, and we have 2 sponsors that we want to hit. Game Time is the first one. Best seats, lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer. The Game Time guarantee is awesome because if you find a lower price on another app, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. And our other sponsor, our friends at Prize Picks. More than 10 million active members, billions of dollars given out in awarded winnings. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on their projected stats. And right now you can win up to 1,000 times your money. And when you use the code CLNS, and you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. It's Chase Sr., Jake Chipper, and the Niner Gang hanging out on a Wednesday. We will be doing a mailbag. That'll be segment number 4. So you can start to get your questions in right now. If you have a hot take, if you have an opinion, if you want to ask me anything, you could be a part of the show so that thousands of people see that you're bringing the heat. Get those questions in right now. Hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. There's our first $20 super chat, which equals 1 Niner Jell-O shot, and it's coming in from Black Mask. And he asked this: what about Gerard Mayo's defensive coordinator There are a lot of defensive coordinator positions in the NFL right now. It will only get harder to find a DC. Very interesting question because Gerard Mayo, of course, great linebacker when he was playing with the Patriots, an understudy for Bill Belichick. What was telling to me, he becomes head coach. And that Patriots defense, which was really good last year under Bill Belichick, was really bad this year. And Robert Kraft has never really been too quick to pull the trigger on a coach. He pulled it fast with Gerard Mayo. Now, I agree with the decision because I thought Mike Vrabel was arguably the best head coaching candidate out there. I'm just not sure how people view Gerard Mayo as a DC now as a coach, given how his defense performed while with New England this year. Zamudio family, a $5 super chat, getting a prediction in here for the NFC Championship game. Buffalo, Washington is what the people want. So AFC title game as well. Chiefs versus Eagles is what we're going to get. Don't people want to see the best game, though? I get it. A lot of people are biased and you are tied to your teams and rivals come into play. But don't you want to see the best game? I think Buffalo-Philadelphia would be the best game. I think Chiefs-Eagles rematch would be a lot of fun. I think that the Commanders could get smacked by Buffalo, and I don't want to see a blowout. I think the Commanders could get smacked by Kansas City, and I don't want to see that either. So I'm going KC, Philadelphia. Give me the rematch in Super Bowl 59. We have 200 people hanging out watching live. If you're ready to talk some Niners, I am. Chip is. Well, I want everybody right now to hit that thumbs up icon. Like the video. Black Mask with that $20 super chat. Anytime somebody sends in a 20, I'm doing a Jell-O shot. So let's take this Jell-O shot down right now. Niner red Jell-O shots.
Let's get it going, baby. I want to see all 5 of these Jell-O shots going down, man.
Yeah, I want 5 Jell-O shots taken down, which then equals a shotgun. So we have one $20 super chat down, 4 more to go. Let's get it here, live on the program. And I want to start off with this. Going to look ahead to April's NFL draft. Super Bowl coming up in a couple of weeks. After that, the NFL Combine. NFL free agency in March. NFL draft in April. And I want to take a look at some Niners draft prospects. Judd Hunt, a $20 super chat. That's another Jell-O shot. Who do you think goes 11 overall? I want Banks from LSU. Well, Kelvin Banks actually is the offensive tackle from Texas. But we're going to talk about the offensive tackle from LSU, and that's literally coming up with segment number 1. So, Judd Hunt, you want an answer to that? I'm about to talk about a bunch of prospects coming up here in just a moment. So, 2 $20 super chats already in. Next 20, we're doing more Jell-O shots. So, let me take this one down as well.
Let's get it, baby. I'm excited for all this draft talk, man. Niners don't, always get a lot of this top 10 draft talk. And with this draft, not a good quarterback class, but there's some really good skill position players, linemen, things like that. So, it's going to be fun. Excited to start talking about the draft here.
Yep.
And so are the people in the chat. A lot of draft talk going on right now. If you have a draft question, hashtag 49ers.
That's all you got to do. Yes, sir. So, again, if you're just joining the show, every $20 super chat, taking down a Niner red Jell-O shot. Already took down 2. We get to 100 in total super chats, taking down a shotgun. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. More than 200 people watching live, only 43 likes. We should be able to get to 100 likes in the next 20 seconds. We always shoot for a 50% viewer participation rate. It always helps the stream too, helps more people find the show. So like the video, and let's talk some Niners right now. Segment number 1 of 4 is coming your way. Hey there, welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. I am your host, Jay Sr., and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What I want to get into, ESPN NFL draft analyst Mel Kiper updated his NFL draft big board, so we're going to explore some potential Niners draft targets based on his prospect rankings. And I think this is a really fitting place to start, taking a look at the Niners offseason needs. First and foremost, They have to rebuild the trenches. And on the offensive line, I want to see a new left guard in 2025. I want to see Jake Brendel get replaced at center, and I want to see a new right tackle because I don't think Colton McKivitz is good enough. Has he outplayed and outperformed his contract? Yeah, but it's been a cheap contract, and you need to have a more premier player at that right tackle spot, especially if you're going to invest in quarterback Brock Purdy, because we saw that he struggled a little bit with bad offensive line protection in front of him and an offensive line that did not run block like we've seen some of Kyle Shanahan's offensive lines run block in seasons prior. So that's along the offensive line. To the defensive line, again, you need to rebuild the trenches here. Nick Bosa needs some help at the other edge rusher spot, and the Niners really need to rebuild the defensive tackle position. Look at what Chris Jones does for the Kansas City Chiefs. Look at how Jalen Carter wreaked havoc against the Los Angeles Rams and the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles' first 2 playoff games. If you get that interior pass rush, it is a game changer for your defense. Elsewhere on the defensive side of the ball, you need corner depth, you need linebacker depth, and safety depth. What happens with George Kittle? Entering the final year of his contract in 2025, if you want to get a future George Kittle replacement, you got to draft the tight end too. You're not going to find that player in free agency. And then running back, given the uncertainty that's hovering around Christian McCaffrey. As for Mel Kiper's top draft prospects, and we're going to take a look at about 20 players here. Travis Hunter is number 1 on his big board, the wide receiver cornerback from Colorado who won the Heisman Trophy this past year. Abdul Carter is my number 1 player in this draft class, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Mason Graham is my number 2 player, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. I think that Carter, Graham, and Hunter are plug-and-play starters right from the jump. This is a pretty weak quarterback draft class. Kiper has Shadur Sanders as his 4th best player, Cam Ward as his 5th best. So the quarterback out of Colorado, quarterback out of Miami, going 4-5 there. Will Johnson, stud corner with great size and length, the corner from Michigan, coming in at number 6 on Kiper's top prospects board. Tet McMillan, really good wide receiver out of Arizona. My pro comp for him is Drake London. Jaylen Walker, a linebacker with some versatility out of Georgia. Ashton Genty, one of the better running backs we've seen in the college game in a little while. And then you go offensive line. Kelvin Banks out of Texas, a Niners target for sure. Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU, another player that should be on the Niners' radar. Michael Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia, one of my other favorite players in this draft class. Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. He would be a great George Kittle replacement if the Niners wanted to move on. Josh Simmons, coming off a torn ACL, but a very athletic and steadily improving offensive tackle from the Ohio State Buckeyes. Colston Loveland, tight end number 2 behind Warren out of Michigan. Malachi Starks, really fun player to watch at that safety spot for Georgia. Tyler Booker, one of the top, if not the best interior offensive lineman in this 2025 class out of Alabama. Nick Emmanwori, the safety out of South Carolina. Luther Burden, the 3rd wide receiver out of Mizzou. And then Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. So those are Mel Kiper's top prospects. Obviously, that big board is long and vast, but we wanted to give you some players right there. And with that, we segue to this. What say you? What should the Niners do, and who should they draft with the 11th overall pick in April's NFL draft? Drop me a name down in the comment section right now. I have 3 dream targets for San Francisco, considering their needs and how special that I think these players are going to be. Travis Hunter, cornerback wide receiver. I truly believe that he can be the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. I think that he can impact games at the wide receiver spot, has the build of Deshaun Jackson, but I think he's a better contested catch receiver as compared to Deshaun Jackson, who goes down as one of the most explosive, one of the best deep ball wide receivers in the history of the NFL. He's also top 5 in 80-plus yard touchdowns throughout his career. Jerry Rice is up there as well. On the defensive side of the ball, I think that Travis Hunter can be a lockdown corner on the outside. What does a team do with him, considering that he could play on both sides? And the NFL game is very physical, A lot of snaps that he registered at Colorado. Do you have durability concerns? I think that he can be a wide receiver in certain situations, and then maybe on obvious passing downs, you put him out there at corner, and he could be that gambler like Asante Samuel, and he could pick off some passes. Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State. His first year as an edge rusher was this year. He has bend, twitch, speed, explosiveness, an array of moves from that defensive end spot, and he can consistently get after the quarterback. And then there's Mason Graham. I think that he can be an impact starter right from the jump, and I think he's going to be a really good player for the next 10 years. He has underrated defensive line versatility, where at Michigan he kind of lined up everywhere. He's so strong, really good anchor. He can beat you in a variety of ways too, and I think that he is a matchup nightmare going up against some of these slower and weak-footed interior offensive linemen. What the Niners do need to do this offseason, whether it be in the draft or in free agency, they have to get faster as a football team. On the offensive side of the rock, this is really where they missed Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey this year. They were slow. And so Travis Hunter is that player who's so dynamic, so versatile, and he has blazing speed. The Niners also need to get an edge rusher and a defensive tackle. It's not either or this offseason. They need to get both. Carter and Graham, they can be high-level premium players for a very long time. Here's a caveat. Unfortunately, I don't think those players are going to be available unless the Niners trade up. What will dictate how the board falls is this: how many quarterbacks go off the board in a weak quarterback class before the Niners pick? It's actually unfortunate that the Niners are at 11 in a weak quarterback class as compared to last year when you saw a handful of quarterbacks go off the board in the top 10, leading to good players falling. Jalen Carter, for instance, a couple of years ago, good quarterback class. He fell to number 9. If you're at 11, you could trade up to 9, and imagine Jalen Carter on this Niners team. It would be incredible to see a player of that ilk, of that caliber on this football team. So if you're a Niner fan, you were hoping that a lot of quarterbacks go prior to the Niners, leading to a good player falling. With that, here are realistic options at number 11, in my opinion. Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. Jaylen Walker, linebacker, edge rusher out of Georgia. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas. Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. Michael Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Trent McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State. Malachi Starks, safety, Georgia. And then Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Talked about those players a little bit so far. I'm about to expand on them coming up just around the corner. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. The most elite Niners coverage in season, off season. You can find it right here on this channel. So lock us in today as we approach 156,000 subscribers. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time, the best app in the ticketing marketplace. Thanks to Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to find the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That's what Game Time offers you. That's what sets them apart from every other ticketing app in the marketplace. They have flash deals and zone deals, the lowest price guaranteed. If you find a lower price elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. And Game Time Picks is a great feature. You don't have to sort through thousands of tickets. Game Time will give you the best vantage point and the best price point for your seats. It's awesome how you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. As for those realistic options for San Francisco, let's run through all of those players here. Here's what Mel Kiper had to say about Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. His stats over 6 games, 21 tackles, 1 TFL, 2 picks, 3 pass breakups, and 2 defensive touchdowns in 6 games. From Kiper, Johnson is so instinctive in coverage, and his ability to read quarterbacks jumps out when you watch him. He has great quickness in his transition, allowing him to make plays on the ball. returned both of his interceptions this year for touchdowns, and you can see those instincts throughout his first pick six in Michigan's opener against Fresno State when he jumped the screen, took the ball 86 yards to the house. He has 9 career picks. He missed the team's last 6 games with a toe injury. Can you imagine this? Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, and Johnson as the Niners' young secondary. They'd be able to hold up in the pass game, and if that defensive line gets home, they can feast on that back end. Mel Kiper on Jaylen Walker. Stats over 14 games, 62 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 7 TFLs, 29 pressures, and 7 run stops. Look at that body type right there. He's a dog. Walker gets into the backfield as if he were shot out of a cannon, and his bend and explosion off the edge helps him beat blockers and get to the quarterback and ball carrier. He's a versatile defender with experience as an off-ball linebacker and as a pass rusher. His sideline-to-sideline speed gets your attention when you watch the tape. In Week 8 against Texas, he picked up 3 sacks. I am very intrigued by where he went to school, Georgia. They're developing prospects at an unbelievable rate who are NFL-ready guys. I'm also intrigued by the versatility. If the Niners let Dre Greenlaw go, you pick up a player like this who can rush the passer, drop back in coverage, use him as a chess piece at that first and second level. He could be a highly impactful player for this Niners team. Here's what Mel Kiper had to say about Kelvin Banks, a player who I've talked about a couple of times here on the show, the Texas offensive tackle. Niners need to upgrade the offensive line for sure. 15 games, 15 starts, 1 sack allowed. He has 42 career starts under his belt, with every snap coming at left tackle. And amazingly, he gave up only 3 sacks during that time. He has the mobility to quickly block off the edge and then the frame and the strength to take care of power rushers. He just needs to become more consistent in the run game as a blocker. He missed the SEC championship with an ankle injury, but returned for Texas's college football playoff games. Kelvin Banks plays under Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian, runs a lot of the elements of Kyle Shanahan's offense. So he would be a good scheme fit. Kyle Shanahan went to Texas, has familiarity with that program. He pops in from time to time, and I think that Banks would be a good scheme fit and a good pick for San Francisco here. Then there's Will Campbell, another offensive tackle who people like a little bit more than Banks. I kind of side with Banks over Campbell, but it's very close. 11 starts, 2 sacks allowed for LSU. Started for LSU since 2022. Gave up just 2 sacks during that first year. He has a big frame, and his solid footwork and technique make him an effective pass protector at that left tackle spot. So both Campbell and Banks, more left tackles. Can they take over at right tackle in the time being and then eventually take over for Trent Williams? That could be a thought there. The Niners will have their pick of the litter at offensive tackle. You could go Banks. You could go Campbell. You could go Simmons. You could go with Josh Connerly, the Oregon offensive tackle, who's starting to climb up draft boards as well. Mel Kiper on Mykel Williams, another Georgia player. 12 games, 24 tackles, 10.5 TFLs, 5 run stops, 5 sacks, 21 pressures, and 2 forced fumbles. Disruptive player here. And Kiper said he's extremely explosive, wins as a pass rusher with speed to power. His bend off the edge is outstanding. The tools are all out there, and his upside is immense. Scouts are hoping to see more consistency in his game and some improvement in his sack totals. Had 4.5 in back-to-back seasons while playing in Georgia's deep front 7, but he totaled only 5 in 2024. 2 against Texas in the SEC championship game. Missed time early in 2024 with a grade 2 left ankle sprain. A player like this worries me a little bit because it's too much of a projection for me. I'd rather go with the player who's more of a sure thing, but he could be a Chris Kocurek developmental project. Mel Kiper on Tet McMillan. 12 games, 84 catches, 1,300 yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. He's a big-bodied wide receiver who can be a mismatch for smaller corners. His great size, body control, concentration, and hands help him consistently win in contested catch situations. He can snatch the ball, make it look easy, and while McMillan plays with more physicality than speed, he generates late separation to get open. He was 3rd in receiving yards in the country. My pro comp for him is Drake London, who's turned into a really good player for the Atlanta Falcons since they took him in the first round out of USC. One, I don't think the Niners are going to draft the wideout in the first round. Two, I don't think they need to. Number three, they need separators. They need man beaters. I don't know if they go with a big-bodied wideout like this, but I do think he's going to be a good pro. One of my other favorite players in this draft class is Tyler Warren. Might be a difficult player to pass up on at number 11. In 16 games in 2024, 104 catches, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. Super versatile. He can be used as a traditional inline tight end at H-back, at fullback, out of the slot, or lined up out wide. He's a reliable pass catcher, and once the ball is in his hands, he can break free. He had 700 yards after the catch this year. He was incredible against USC in October, hauling in 17 catches for 224 and a tutty. It tied for the most single-game catches by a tight end in FBS history. This dude is a freak. This dude can pick up yards after the catch like George Kittle. Not going to be the blocker that Kittle is, but let's just say Kittle's entering the final year of his contract in 2025. This is a team that's getting expensive and older. You let Kittle play out the final year of his deal. You let Kyle Juszczyk go. Tyler Warren can replace Kittle in 2026. You run 2 tight end sets a lot in 2025, and he could play a little bit of fullback for you in 2024. I'd love the pick. I know tight end would be a luxury selection, but I love the player. And if the Niners go best player available, hard to pass up on. Mel Kiper on Josh Simmons. He likes Simmons to the Niners in one of his recent mocks. 6 starts, no sacks allowed. Suffered a season-ending injury against Oregon, a former San Diego State right tackle. He had looked really good on the left side after transferring to Ohio State prior to 2023. So that's a 2-year sample size there, considering, 2024 is a little bit cut short. But with Ohio State 2023 into 2024, he's just very consistent, showing excellent footwork and balance and pass protection. I really like the way he drives defensive ends off the ball and gets to the second level. If he had stayed healthy this year, I think he'd be in the offensive tackle 1 mix. Now, the injury, the torn ACL, it concerns me, especially with the team that has been snake-bitten by injuries and coming off a year in which they lost a lot of marquee players to injuries. But man, the talent is certainly there. Kiper on Malachi Starks. 14 games, 67 tackles, 3 TFLs, 3 run stops, 4 pass breakups, 1 pick. This dude's a safety all around the field. He has a skill set to affect the game in a variety of ways. He's a force against the run from the back end and doesn't miss many tackles. He closes so fast in coverage, allowing him to break up some passes, and he has spent time lined up over the slot. Plus, he has outstanding hands to finish plays. We saw that in action in Week 1 against Clemson when Starks made an incredible leaping pick in the 4th quarter. Producer Chip shaking his head because he remembers that play. I remember it as well. And Starks is such a fun player to watch. Can you imagine if you pick him up and you have him, Malik Mustafa at safety, and then you sprinkle in Jair Brown from time to time? You're pretty good at that 3rd level. But also, a lot of players with positional versatility there. And then Mel Kiper on Tyler Booker. 13 games, 13 starts, no sacks allowed. Strong, shows great movement traits at the point of attack. No one gets by him in pass protection. He does a nice job keeping his feet. He's also a solid run blocker who plays with power, has the quickness to get to the second level. Very underrated in this class. Should be a good pro. He allowed 1 sack over 3 years at Alabama. Guard is definitely a big need. I'm just not sure that the Niners would take one in the 1st round. That might be a little bit too early for San Francisco, but if they want to plug and play starter, they let Aaron Banks go, who can net $8 to $10 million per year in free agency, and you put him at left guard. You have Dominic Pooney, all-rookie team at right guard. You find a center in the mid to late rounds or in free agency. You're shoring up left guard, center, right guard. Do you replace Colton McKivitz? Do you let him play out the final year of his contract? He could be at least passable at that point. That's how this reconstruction can take place very quickly. A lot of you are probably saying, Chase, you just went through all of these players as targets for the Niners at number 11. No Ashton Genty? Look, my team building philosophy, unless a player is really special, you don't take running backs in the 1st round. Unless you take that running back as a luxury pick. Like, if you're the Detroit Lions and you were looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, and you're like, we have a pretty good roster everywhere else. Let's just go Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta. It worked out for them. But the Niners have so many more needs outside of running back where you don't need to go Ashton Genty at number 11. So which of these prospects do you like the most? We just ran through a lot of them with some scouting intel, some of my opinions as well. Drop me a name or names down in the comment section right now. All right, 300 people watching live. Thanks for hanging out. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon. Like the video. Our Super Chat menu. Every $20 that we get, I'm taking down a Niner Red Jello shot. We already had two $20 Super Chats come in. I want to take down 5 Jello shots, get us to 100 total, and then I'm taking down a shotgun. Get those Super Chats in right now. Let's have a Wednesday here on the show. Which one? No, we did not. Which is actually a good thing that the Super Chat gets brought up here. And we're at $50 in Super Chats, by the way. I just did a YouTube short on this, and this is a big talking point among Niner fans. If the 49ers don't get Saleh, what do you think of Pete Carroll as defensive coordinator? So, going to talk about this coming up in segment number 3. Tim Kawakami reported that it is an idea that has been discussed by San Francisco to bring in Pete Carroll as defensive coordinator if the Niners whiff on Robert Saleh. Couple of things that come to mind. And in that Kawakami piece in the San Francisco Standard, I believe is the publication that he's working for now, alongside David Lombardi, he mentioned that Kyle Shanahan wants energy at the defensive coordinator spot. Once again, Pete Carroll has that. Steve Wilks, Nick Sorensen, they didn't have it. Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans, they did, right? And so you'd get energy. Pete Carroll's specialty is the defensive side of the football. Very experienced. He's seen everything. He'd be a good leader on that side of the ball. But man, this is the predicament in the corner that the Niners have backed themselves into because they put all of their eggs in this Robert Saleh basket where if they don't land him, they're going to be scrambling, looking for a defensive coordinator. So a good question there. I have a lot of thoughts on this. That'll be segment number 3. We're about to get segment number 2 started here momentarily. 307 people watching live. Chip had to leave the studio for a second, so once he comes back in here, we'll get it ripping for segment number 2 of 4 on today's show. Continue to hang out here with us. Just went through a bunch of Niners draft targets. Now we're going to talk about the latest around Robert Saleh. Segment number 3, Pete Carroll to the Niners. Segment number 4 will be a mailbag. So just waiting on Chip to come back in here, and then we'll continue to move forward on the show. In the meantime, I'll take another Jello shot. We're at $50 in Super Chats. We get to 100, I'm taking down a shotgun. Every $20 Super Chat, doing a Jello shot. So can somebody send in a 20 before Chip comes back in here? Let's get it going. Just taking a look. Some coaching news around the NFL today. Liam Cohen backed out of the Jaguars head coaching job. Doesn't make Robert Saleh a favorite. There's some buzz there. Aaron Glenn taking the head coaching job with the New York Jets. That Detroit Lions staff has been absolutely gutted. John Spytek, who was in the Buccaneers front office, he is landing the Las Vegas Raiders GM job. Could he get Liam Cohen to follow him to Las Vegas? I think the uncertainty of not having a quarterback could scare some of these offensive coaches away. Pete Carroll in the running to be the Raiders head coach. I think they could use a culture changer like Pete over there, who's 72 years old but doesn't look it, doesn't act it. It's pretty awesome. What do you think about Tyler Warren from Penn State? Yeah, Mr. Block Ice, I just talked a lot about him. We're going to include that question in our mailbag, so I'll answer that further in addition to what I had said in segment number 1, coming up segment number 4. All right. Slick Niner, would Ron Rivera be an option for DC? No way. No way. You don't want Ron Rivera as your defensive coordinator. No way, no how. So use hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat so that you can get your mailbag questions in. I see some really good questions that have come in. And then segment number 4, we'll start to answer those questions here. Slick Niner, yeah, I would not go Ron Rivera. Just not appealing to me at all. What about Gus Bradley from Wet Noodle? That Colts defense last year was not good at all. And they haven't requested an interview with Gus Bradley. They've interviewed 3 candidates formally. Robert Saleh, Brandon Staley, and Deshae Townsend. That's it. So it's really Saleh or bust. And we're about to talk about Saleh right now, segment number 2. Let's get into it. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic Wednesday, January 22nd. I wish I could bring you fantastic news, but what we're about to talk about on today's show, it's not great for San Francisco, as the Niners got bad news here today if they want to hire Robert Saleh as their next defensive coordinator to take over for Nick Sorensen. We're going to dive into all of that, but first, I want to give a shout out to our special, fantastic sponsor, our friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. The big game is almost here. It's now or never. We have 3 football games left, so don't miss out on the last few football games of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching these big games. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game in New Orleans, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw for 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. And check out the promos tab to tail any of our super sweat Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. So you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Right now, when you play $5, you can get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. Some selections that we like for Championship Sunday. Jane Daniels, more on the passing yards. That's the special. More than a half passing yard. Easy money. Terry McLaurin, more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. And then A.J. Brown, more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. Run your game with Prize Picks. Get $50 when you play 5. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. As for the latest on Robert Saleh, what a joke and a dysfunctional operation the Jacksonville Jaguars are. Adam Schefter with this news on this Wednesday that general manager Trent Baalke is out as the Jags GM. And let me give you a quick timeline of events. After the 2024 season, Shad Khan, the Jags owner, fired Doug Peterson. Usually when a head coach gets fired and you want to start anew, you fire the head coach and the general manager. Shad Khan did not fire Trent Baalke. Instead, they had a press conference together when Shad Khan, right in front of Trent Baalke, mentioned potentially firing him if that's what it took to hire a coach who wanted to come to Jacksonville who didn't want to work with Baalke. That was a couple of weeks ago at this point. And now, after Ben Johnson turned down the Jags and Liam Cohen turned down the Jags, probably because they didn't want to work with Trent Baalke or for Shad Khan has fired Trent Baalke as the Jaguars general manager. Bad teams in professional sports stay bad for a reason. Take note. Statement from Shad Khan. Following several discussions with Trent Baalke this week, we both arrived at the conclusion that it is in our mutual best interests to respectfully separate effective immediately. Trent leaves us with my deepest appreciation for his efforts over the past 5 years. Ethan Wall will serve as interim general manager. He has Niner ties, by the way, and play an important role with others as we continue the process of interviewing candidates to serve as our new head coach. I am deeply committed to building a winner here in Jacksonville and look forward to introducing a new head coach who will make that happen for our players and fans alike. Can you imagine being a player for this organization and you're watching all of this unfold from the end of the season up until now and you're like, we are so dysfunctional. We have no stability. We have no continuity. Our owner doesn't know what he's doing. He's making all these weird decisions, and I got to play for this team. My instant reaction when I saw that tweet from Adam Schefter, The Jags are a joke, and the Jags are a laughingstock. Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen said no to the Jags. And it's pretty telling that those two great offensive minds, Ben Johnson, who developed the heck out of Jared Goff, Liam Cohen, who did that with Will Levis at Kentucky, Rams OC under Sean McVay, helped Baker Mayfield have a career year, also said no to the Jags. Now, I think a lot of it is due to Shad Khan and Trent Baalke, but they may have said no to Trevor Lawrence as well, which is also kind of eye-opening as well. It made no sense from the jump to fire Doug Peterson and to hold on to Baalke. And these teams who did fire a head coach and are also looking for a general manager, they started this process 3 weeks ago. So some of the top candidates are off the board. And now Jacksonville now has to monitor a pretty thin pool of head coaches and GM candidates. Now with Robert Saleh here, I've been talking about the potential possibility of him going to Jacksonville for a while, and these were my talking points. He has a lot of fans within that building. He's looked at as a favorite to land this head coaching job. Why? The Jags know him. Shad Khan knows him. Linebackers coach from 2014 to 2016 under Gus Bradley. Then he went to the Niners. Then he went to the Jets to be the head coach. And at the time, I posed this. Does he want to work with Trent Baalke? Baalke's a dead man walking. If you're a new head coach getting hired by an organization, you want to come in with a new GM. You want to be tied to them in lockstep. You don't want to hold over GM because then you have no continuity, you have no stability, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're that GM's guy. If you hire a new GM who hires the coach, you are together in this operation. You either win together or you go out down and out together. And so I thought about that. And then also, would Saleh want to go from Woody Johnson, one of the worst owners in the NFL, to one of the other worst owners in the NFL, in Shad Khan? And I thought that the Jags keeping Baalke hurt their head coaching search. But for Saleh, he might be looking at it in this way. I had a great defense with New York. We never got quarterback right. I could team up with Trevor Lawrence. These head coaching jobs are tough to get. There are only 32 of them in the world. Instead of being a defensive coordinator, I want another crack at being a head coach, and I wouldn't blame him for that. But this could impact Saleh one of two ways with the Jags finally getting rid of Baalke. He either looks at the dysfunction and he says, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. I just dealt with it with the New York Jets. They canned me, and after they fired me, they were awful, and they got even worse on the defensive side of the football. They didn't win games. He can go to a stable organization with the 49ers. He can be compensated and be paid as the highest defensive coordinator in football salary-wise with some star-level players who he's familiar with, who he's coached before, including Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Some young players like Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green. Malik Mustafa at that safety spot. And Saleh could look at this as an opportunity to increase his resume, to get a deep breath of fresh air after a strenuous time with the Jets, and then he waits for a better opening where he can be a head coach somewhere else with a better opportunity. Or Saleh now could look at that Jags job as an opportunity to pair up with the general manager of his choosing with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, knowing he never had a quarterback that talented with that much potential, while with the Jets, he could take care of the defense, hire an OC, get Trevor Lawrence back on track. We're in a bad division in the AFC South, and there we go. We could be a playoff team in year one. Saleh also knows from experience how important organizational cohesion is, right? He came to the Niners in 2017 with Kyle Shanahan, with John Lynch. He was with them. He saw that they were running a really good operation. Shanahan and Lynch rebuilt the team 2017, 2018. They made it to the Super Bowl in 2019. What I thought was telling, the coaching job of Robert Saleh in 2020, so many players were injured, they still had a really good defense. I also want to make note of this. Ethan Wall, who steps in as interim GM, previously spent 17 years with the Niners. He overlapped with Robert Saleh. So could Saleh look at that and say, well, I could just team up with Wall and let's get this organization popping once again. Jordan Schultz with this report on this Wednesday, January 22nd. that former Jets head coach Robert Saleh flying into Jacksonville on Thursday for a Friday meeting with Shad Khan, Trent Baalke, and others. Obviously, Trent Baalke has since gotten fired, but that interview is still going to take place on Friday. With Liam Cohen out of the running, many around the league view Saleh as a potential favorite, though it wouldn't be surprising if the Jags expanded their head coaching search. Look out for Joe Brady to be in that conversation. Could Liam Cohen say, I didn't want to work with the Jags with Trent Baalke. Now that he's out, I'll reconsider it if I can have a say as to who the GM is going to be. Interesting stuff, fluid stuff, and it continues to develop. So where will Saleh land? 4-9 for the 49ers. JAC for the Jags. 0 for other. That's the big mystery for San Francisco right now. All right. 315 people watching. You love to see it. Here's our Super Chat menu if you want to donate to the show and tip the bartender. I'm the bartender. All Super Chats get a shout out. Every $20 Super Chat that comes in, I'm taking down a Niner red Jello shot. We've already taken down 2. If we get to $100 in total, I'm going to do a shotgun. We're at 52 right now. If somebody sends in a 50, I'll do the Jello shot and a shotgun back-to-back. Can't be scared out on these YouTube streets. Segment number 3 is coming up. We're going to talk about Pete Carroll, and then we're going to do our mailbag. So continue to get those questions in. Hashtag 49ers or send in a Super Chat.
People have already done pretty good on these questions. Good stuff today. You can tell, we're starting to get to that part of the offseason where we're still a ways away from the draft, obviously, and free agency, but people's minds are starting to go that direction now. So, good stuff.
That's what you love to see. That's what you love to see. All right. Could Pete Carroll get hired as the next Niners defensive coordinator? A couple of Super Chats that just came in. We have Pete and Dreadhead David. Good stuff. And Pete relaying some feelings that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. He said the Robert Saleh waiting game is really stressing me out. Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of quick movement, fast movement in the coaching world. I'm just waiting for that to pick up at some point as we're entering conference championship weekend. Regular season ended almost 3 weeks ago. So, Pete, I hear you. And then Dreadhead David, 420, ripping his bong, saying, Chase! Dreadhead, hope all is well, dude. Looking good with the tie in there. Thanks for the 5. All right, continue to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. We're at $59 in Super Chat, so 41 away from a shotgun. Somebody sends in that 50. I'm doing a Jello shot and a shotgun. Let's get it. All right, let's talk Pete Carroll here. This is kind of out of nowhere and a wild report and rumor, but it's going to be a fun one to discuss, so let's do it. Coming up here on the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, my name is Chase Sr. How about this? Could Pete Carroll become the next Niners defensive coordinator to take over for Nick Sorensen if San Francisco cannot land Robert Saleh? Plenty to talk about here, and I have a lot of thoughts. Tim Kawakami with a very fascinating piece, longtime Bay Area sports reporter. First, if you want more Niners offseason coverage and daily videos on the Niners, in-season, off-season, I got you covered. Anytime I'm in front of a camera, on a microphone, I want to give you Niners videos that are insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking, where you have a voice. So if that sounds good, join the movement as we approach 156,000 subs and lock us in. Hit that sub button right now. Our sponsor for today's show, making everything go, our friends at Game Time. Really appreciate them for being a great partner to work with here at Chat Sports. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. They filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats. The super deal is the best value for that event. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. On-time ticket delivery, lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. There's also event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and a whole lot more. And it's not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. If you do want to go to a San Jose Sharks game, if you want to go to a Golden State Warriors game in San Francisco, plenty of tickets available. Toggle the all-in pricing tool, by the way, to show you your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's talk Pete Carroll to the San Francisco 49ers here. After pretty much getting fired by the Seattle Seahawks after the 2023 season, Seattle replaced him with Mike Macdonald, the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, and then Carroll was retained by the Seahawks to pretty much be a consultant for that organization, but he wants to be a head coach again. He interviewed and showed interest in the Chicago Bears job. Chicago elected to hire the hottest coaching candidate on the market in Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. He is also a candidate for the Las Vegas Raiders head coaching job, which is being headlined and led by Tom Brady and Mark Davis. I think with the Raiders, they tried to get Ben Johnson, haven't been able to land another good offensive mind. I think what they could use is a culture changer. And I think that Pete Carroll could be a culture changer for Las Vegas. And he wants to coach again after taking a year off from coaching. He might be in his early 70s, but this dude, his gas tank is still full of energy. And when I'm in my early 70s, I want to look like Pete Carroll and I want to act like Pete Carroll because my man still brings it and he loves ball. And we're discussing this because Tim Kawakami brought it up. He had some interesting reporting as I'm about to get to. But if the Niners miss out on Robert Saleh, San Francisco could get desperate to find a defensive coordinator. Here's what Tim Kawakami had to say about Carroll. This swiftly could turn into a highly desperate situation if the Niners miss out on Saleh, their top choice for defensive coordinator, and they basically run out of other notable options from the Pete Carroll defensive tree. Maybe it's already pretty desperate, right? Well, here's a solution to ease many anxieties. Why not just check in with Pete Carroll? Yeah, it does sound a little bit crazy. It sounds out of left field. But the Niners don't really seem to have a backup plan here. They have only had interviews formally with 3 candidates. Robert Saleh, who has that second interview with the Jags on Friday. Deshae Townsend, who's an assistant with the Detroit Lions. Their coaching staff is getting gutted right now. And then Brandon Staley, who was an assistant on that defensive staff under defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen, whose primary role was to work with DBs. The DBs performed well for this team last year. Former Chargers head coach, he failed out there, was a good Rams defensive coordinator in 2020, but some numbers inflated due to that COVID year, no fans being at games. But he was an understudy of Vic Fangio, who brought him in when he was in Chicago. And then when Fangio got that head coaching job with the Denver Broncos, he brought Staley with him. And Vic Fangio, one of the finer defensive minds in the history of football. And this season, he's worked his magic with the Philadelphia Eagles. They've gone from one of the worst defenses in the NFL to the number 1 overall defense in the league. And so Vic Fangio disciples are always very intriguing. Kyle Shanahan and the Niners, I will give them credit for this, are willing to be aggressive and they're willing to spend. They are willing to make Saleh the highest paid defensive coordinator in the sport. And think about what Shanahan did last offseason. He targeted Bill Belichick, who wanted to be a head coach, didn't want to be a coordinator. He targeted Jeff Ulbrich, but Robert Saleh wanted to keep him on that Jets staff. He tried to get Steve Spagnuolo after the Super Bowl to be the Niners defensive coordinator after his contract was up, but Spags, as he should have, returned to Kansas City. And because of that, Shanahan had to settle for Sorensen. It's a similar situation now. They're trying to get Saleh. But they're looking around and they're like, well, Dennis Allen might follow Ben Johnson to the Bears. Lou Anarumo went to the Colts. Gus Bradley, he's a Pete Carroll understudy, but his defense with Indy sucked. And so they're looking around with not a lot of options out there. They probably don't want to go with an experienced defensive coordinator again, given what happened with Nick Sorensen. Do they go with a future Hall of Famer in Carroll? More from Kawakami. That is, if the Raiders don't hire Carroll as their head coach, of course. But you never know what the Raiders will do. And Carroll's conversations with Las Vegas are strong indicators that Carroll is quite interested in getting back into the NFL in some way. He and Kyle Shanahan have mutual respect from their days going up against each other, and Carroll is one of the original architects of what's known, because of Carroll, as the Seattle-style defense, the 4-3 cover-3 defensive scheme that Shanahan has always chosen for the Niners. In fact, as the Niners anxiously await for the outcome of Saleh's interview with Jacksonville for their head coaching vacancy, I've heard that Carroll's name has come up inside Niners HQ as an interesting idea at least. But the 49ers also have to wait out things with Carroll, who, according to The Athletic, could be the Raiders' #1 choice now that Ben Johnson has taken the Bears job. So let's summarize some of this, right? Pete Carroll wants to coach again. Defense is his specialty. USC, Seattle, back with New England back in the day in the 1990s. He runs the Niners' preferred scheme. His name has come up. And if Kyle Shanahan wants energy, Pete Carroll has energy. And speaking of energy, Tim Kawakami, he said energy is a key word in this Niners defensive coordinator search I've heard. The implication being that Steve Wilks in 2023 and Nick Sorensen last year didn't do much to rev up their players during their one-year DC tenures. Saleh, who was Shanahan's first Niners DC from 2017 to 2020 before leaving to take the top spot with New York, definitely brings energy wherever he goes. So does DeMeco Ryans, who replaced Saleh as the Niners DC. Then he left after 2 years to take over for the Houston Texans. Carroll, at 73, I don't know if I said he's 72 earlier, but early 70s, is still probably the most energetic candidate that the Niners could possibly consider. Just think that he could return to the Niners defensive coordinator role he first had 30 years ago from 1995 to 1996 under George Seifert, just missing Mike Shanahan's 49ers offensive coordinator tenure by 1 year. How about that? Pete Carroll, way back in the day, maybe returning back to the Bay. Yeah, I got bars here. The 49ers, I will say this with the energy thing, they were lacking serious juice on the sideline. It's part of the reason why Shanahan wanted Steve Wilks to come from the booth to the sideline. Nick Sorensen, very much like Kyle Shanahan, stands there, isn't really energetic, is always looking at that play sheet. Then you see DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh. They're rah-rah guys. They're getting players into it, getting players fired up. Chris Kocurek is like that as well. Can you see Pete Carroll with the Air Monarchs on the sideline, running around, getting fired up, chewing that big honk of bubble gum, getting in the face of Fred Warner after a big forced fumble? Yeah, I freaking love you, 54. That's what the Niners need a little bit. Something to balance out Kyle Shanahan kind of being that cool, calm, and collected type of dude. So Shanahan, I think he's willing to hire a big personality and an accomplished coach. He attempted to hire Bill Belichick. And so I don't think that takes him away from hiring Carroll, who's a big personality and an accomplished coach. We'll see what happens. Interesting stuff right here. Wanted to discuss it here on the show. So what say you? Should the Niners target Pete Carroll to be defensive coordinator? H for hire. D for a different choice. I want to see where you're all at. One more segment to go.
Pete Carroll. Thoughts? What are our thoughts on Pete Carroll, man? What are our thoughts?
What are people saying here?
Couple D's for different choice, couple H's. Joji Ernesto saying to hire Pete Carroll.
What do we got, people?
Caleb Ozulax with the super chat. Get that.
What you got, Caleb?
This is kind of more of a question about the Jags, though, it seems. And Saleh. Caleb asking, there are 2 former Niners in that Jags team. Arik Armstead, C.J. Beathard. Would Saleh be able to elevate those two the same way he did at San Francisco? Shoot, I mean, I bet he'd be able to get a little bit more out of Armstead than last year. Although Armstead was banged up last year, no? Let's see. Just 2 sacks on the year.
Arik Armstead?
Yeah. Oh, he played all 17.
Yeah, he played all 17.
Yeah, not nearly the same guy.
I was looking at his PFF grades a couple of weeks ago. 68.7 overall, 70 pass rush grade, run defense grade of 61.9, 36
awful.
Pressures. Only 2 sacks, as Chip mentioned. So he was solid, but like not for the $17 or $18 million per year that I think he was getting.
Question there, Caleb.
Good question, bro. About to do our mailbag right here. We're up to $65 in super chats. If we get to 100, I'm doing a shotgun. And every 20 that we get, I'm taking down some Niner red Jello shots. The goal is to get to 100 on the stream here today. Can we do it? I've already taken down a couple. Let's do some more.
Yes, sir.
Why did CBS Radio Dallas call me during that segment? Do they want me to talk on their radio station?
Yeah, I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, I got a buzz on my watch. I was like, what the heck? Anyway.
Someone in the chat got me. They were like, Saleh just hired by the Jags. I looked at my phone real quick. I was like, all right, this guy, people love to troll, man.
I don't think they're going to do it before that interview on Friday.
I was like, what?
All right, let's do our mailbag here. Round out with that. Get those questions in. Hashtag 49ers. Send in a super chat. Get to chop it up. Open up the floor. Chase, did Jordan Elliott do anything this year? He was just okay. Injured for a bit. More of a run-stuffing defensive tackle, and the Niners, once again, really struggled against the run. He did have a run defense grade of 53.1. So, a little bit disappointing from him. And Malik Collins was okay, but he's more of a pass-rushing defensive tackle. All right, mailbag coming up. Let's answer your questions. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic weekend. You're watching the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. My name is Jay Sr., and no matter where you are or how you're tuned in on this fine weekend, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, going to open up the floor, take questions from our subscribers right here on the show, and you know what I need you to do. Scroll on down. Yeah, you see it. Hit that subscribe button. Join the movement here on the Niners Report as we approach 156,000 subscribers. And if you want videos from me every day, talking Niners news, rumors, analysis, draft, free agency, hit that sub button. Let's begin with this, a $5 super chat from San Fran 49. Love the profile picture there as well. If the Niners don't get Robert Saleh, what do you think about Pete Carroll as defensive coordinator? I wouldn't love it. And we're talking about this after the Tim Kawakami story/report, where he reported that the Niners have talked about his name inside Niners HQ as a potential option. And he does want to coach again, was interested in interview with the Chicago Bears. He's interviewed with the Las Vegas Raiders. Defense is his specialty. He runs the Niners 4-3 cover 3 scheme. His name has come up, as I noted, and the dude has some great energy, even at 73 years old. And that's what Shanahan is looking for, according to Kawakami. Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans, they were high-energy guys. They were rah-rah guys on that sideline. Kyle Shanahan is not that. And I think that you need that a little bit. That's partially why Shanahan wanted Steve Wilks to come to the sideline from the booth to fire players up, to have face-to-face conversations. Now, not everybody does that. Vic Fangio is the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. They have the number 1 overall defense in the sport, and he's up there in the box because he can take a look at the field from that all-22 bird's-eye perspective. But Pete Carroll, if there's one thing that he has, it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of experience. He's a future Hall of Famer. And I wouldn't love it because that would mean that the Niners miss out on Saleh. He's been my number 1 option. And I also don't like how the Niners don't really have a contingency plan. They don't have a backup plan. That's not what good businesses do. And the Niners have been a well-run business. You always have to have a backup plan in case plan A doesn't work out. For the Niners, they're like, Saleh. We'll make him the highest paid DC. We're going all in on Saleh. Well, what if you don't get him? Who's your next option? And they've only interviewed formally 3 candidates: Saleh, Brandon Staley, and Deshae Townsend. So if Carroll doesn't get the Raiders job, and if Saleh does get the Jags job, does Pete Carroll slide in as the next Niners defensive coordinator? Would be so fascinating, and we'll see. Black Mask, $20. What about Gerard Mayo as a defensive coordinator? There are a lot of DC positions in the NFL right now. It will only get harder to find a DC. Yeah, they're starting to dry up a little bit. You know, Lou Anarumo went to Indy. A lot of rumors behind Dennis Allen following Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears, as Ben Johnson looks at Allen as his top DC choice. By the time that you're watching the show, that may have already happened. If Ben Johnson's putting together his staff, that Detroit staff is really getting gutted right now, and I'm interested to see how Dan Campbell coaches next year and how the Lions fare without Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator. He took that Jets head coaching job. With Gerard Mayo, the one thing that stands out to me is that even though the offense was so anemic in 2023 for the Patriots under Bill Belichick, they had a top 10 defense, and they were awesome. Gerard Mayo comes in. Defense is his specialty. He has so much experience coaching the defense under Bill Belichick. He was a great defensive player under Bill Belichick, and that defense took a massive step back. And so that worries me a little bit, and I think it would worry San Francisco. Shane Kirshner, hope all is well, my man. What about Patrick Graham if he doesn't end up getting a head coaching job for our defensive coordinator? That is a name that I would really like. Patrick Graham with the Giants, Patrick Graham with the Raiders. He's been a really good defensive coordinator, and there's a reason why he's getting some head coaching opportunities, and is going to have a second interview with Jacksonville. He's a really good defensive mind. There's been some talk, or was some talk, that he was in the running to get the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator job, but that's going to go to Al Golden, who was the DC under Marcus Freeman with Notre Dame. And so back to Black Mask's point, some of these DC jobs are drying up. So could that lead Patrick Graham to San Francisco? I wouldn't hate that. At least bring him in for an interview. Slick Niner, $2. Would Ron Rivera be an option for DC? No chance I'm hiring Ron Rivera. I think it's hilarious how his nickname is Riverboat Ron, and people call him that because he's aggressive. He's a gambler. The dude was so conservative with Carolina and with Washington. And look at how much better Washington is this year compared to last year. Obviously, Jaden Daniels has a big reason for that, right? And he might be the best rookie quarterback that we've ever seen. But it's not like that roster is that talented. And Dan Quinn's done a great job as compared to what Ron Rivera did with the Commanders. Chualor, can we please get Matt Eberflus as our defensive coordinator? So that's another name to watch. Eberflus was a disaster class as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. I was stunned that the Bears hired him to be their head coach at the time. I didn't think that he was worthy of that head coaching job, nor did I think that he was going to work out. And it didn't work out. Game management was so bad. Had to fire multiple offensive coordinators during his short tenure. As a defensive mind, though, with Indy, good DC. With Chicago, they had some good defenses, especially when he was calling some plays. I think it benefits him as a coordinator to have some head coaching experience. So that's another veteran who, yeah, I'd at least bring in for an interview. I just don't get right now why San Francisco has only interviewed 3 guys. Who do you want to be the Niners defensive coordinator? That is the big question at this point of the offseason, which I'm fine with. because that means that we don't have to talk about a Brock Purdy contract every day. Join the conversation right now and debate it down in the comments. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. The big game is almost here. We have 3 football games left, so it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Check out the promos tab to tail any of our Super Sweat Millie winners, big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. And right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Some selections that we like for championship weekend. All Jayden Daniels has to do is throw for more than a half passing yard. All right, bet, check. Terry McLaurin, more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. The same for A.J. Brown. Pick more, pick less. Run your game with Prize Picks. prizepicks.com/CLNS. We'll put that link down below in the show notes, and it's dangling underneath the pinned comment of today's Niners Report. Jut Hunt with the $20 super chat. Who do you think goes 11 overall? I want Banks from LSU. So you're talking about Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. Kelvin Banks is the offensive tackle from Texas. What do I think the Niners do? I think they go offensive tackle, edge rusher, or defensive tackle. And you can get a really quality player at that point in the draft. If they want to go luxury pick, it would not shock me if they go best player available and they simply say, we cannot pass on Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. That's an option there. But the Niners offseason needs left guard, center, right tackle along the offensive line, edge and defensive tackle along the defensive line, cornerback, linebacker, safety, tight end 2, and running back. Those are the biggest needs for this team. And so you could go Campbell, you could go Banks, you could go Josh Simmons, who's the Ohio State offensive tackle. You could go Malachi Starks, a safety. You could go with one of the Georgia edge rushers or linebackers. So that's kind of where I think the Niners go. I'd love to go Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. Those are my 2 favorite players in this draft. Travis Hunter would be electrifying, but I think all 3 of those players are going top 5, depending on what happens with the quarterbacks. Destroyer. Do you think the Niners should draft Ashton Genty? I do not think the Niners should draft Ashton Genty. I think that Genty is going to be a good pro. I worry a little bit at the size. He's like 5'8", 5'9". Boise State, he was a workhorse there. Against Penn State, when I watched him in the college football playoff, at first I said, he looks a little bit small going up against a lot of NFL dudes on that Penn State roster. He still carried it like 30 times for more than 100 yards, and there was jump cut ability. There was short area quickness and explosion. There was good vision and patience. I think he's going to be a good pro, but it really does go against my team building strategy to draft the running back at number 9. The Niners have far greater needs than running back. You just signed Christian McCaffrey to an extension through 2027. He's making $19 million per year. You just took Isaac Orendo. You have an opportunity to retain Jordan Mason. Let me throw this out there, too. Even though Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, the 2 Penn State running backs, are returning to school, I don't know how James Franklin made that work. This is a deep running back class here in 2025. So if you want to draft an RB, get one in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. You can get a really high-quality player. Mr. Block Ice, what do you think about Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end? He's Kittle-like and can be used on different setups. Plus, him and Kittle could be a great 2 tight end set. Yeah, so I said this before anybody even discussed it on Niners Twitter back a couple of months ago. I had said, look, if the Niners go best player available, Tyler Warren might have to be that guy. Here was my thought process here. George Kittle is getting older. He's also entering the final year of his contract in 2025. I think that it would be great for George Kittle to retire as a Niner. One of the all-time greats for this organization. As great of a player as he's been just as good of a leader and a captain. But he's also an older player whose new deal is going to be pricey because the last 2 years he's played at an all-pro level. Last year he was a first-team all-pro. This year I thought he was fantastic. He got beat out first-team all-pro honors by Brock Bowers, and he's an awesome blocker. But if the Niners want to draft his replacement and they want to have Kittle play out the last year of his deal, they can go 2 tight end sets in 2025. In addition to that, Tyler Warren can be a great weapon for San Francisco. He can line up at H-back, fullback, tight end. He lines up out wide. Shoot, he lined up as a center and took quarterback snaps for Penn State last year. Just a freak of an athlete who can pick up yak. 700 yards after the catch this year, like Kittle. He can break tackles, like Kittle. Contested catch guy. You run him down the seam, he could pair up with Brock Purdy for a long, long time. And we've seen how Brock Purdy has been able to elevate the game of Kittle. So you reset your salary cap a little bit and your roster a little bit if you make that decision. And I don't hate it. Joe Squared. You were raving about Aaron Banks last year. I agree with you this year. He didn't do that well. Replace him already, or you hope that he has a bounce back year. Get a right tackle instead. So here's the thing about Aaron Banks. He played pretty well last year. He played bad in a contract year. My issue with Aaron Banks, he's going to get $8 to $10 million, I believe, from another team when you factor in that he's played solid football for San Francisco. I am not paying Aaron Banks that much money. I'd rather just draft a left guard for half of that price who could be a better player. And I think that you can upgrade at that position. And then right tackle, you mentioned right tackle. Yeah, I want one of those too. So I'm going right tackle, edge, or defensive tackle at pick number 11. Second, third, fourth round, you can get a really good guard. Niners drafted Dominic Pooney, all-rookie team this year in the third round. You can get a center mid to late rounds too. Again, people overcomplicate things with trying to rebuild this football team. I don't think it's going to be that hard. And then my burner account, I guess. What does the cap situation look like? I got you. So let me pull up over the cap. Niners are in a decent spot right now for 2025. They have $46.4 million in cap space without any roster moves. That's restructures, cuts, trades, post-June 1 designations. And so that ranks behind the Patriots, Raiders, Commanders, Cardinals, Bears, Chargers, Vikings, Bengals, Lions, Rams, Niners. That's 11th in the NFL. So the Niners have $46.4 million in cap room. Patriots have 120. Raiders have 92. Commanders 87. And then it goes down from there. So that's the Niners cap situation. Who should the Niners take at number 11? Give me some names down in the comments section. Do you know ball? Have you done some scouting? Show me. All right, $650 on the East Coast, $350 on the West Coast. We're at $67 in Super Chats. Let me pop up my 2-minute Super Chat shot clock. We did get another Super Chat. If you want us to stay live, send in a Super Chat. For every $20 Super Chat that comes in, I'm taking down a Jell-O shot. If we get to 100 total, or 33 away, doing a shotgun. El Grillo, draft Rosie O'Donnell as the new running back. You know what? She could pick up a half yard. She might be able to pick up a half yard. Does she have a big body these days? I don't even know, man. All I know is that she was kind of losing it after Trump got elected. But hopefully she's in an okay spot. Maybe she can use that anger to pick up that half yard on a goal line situation. Super Chat menu. All Super Chats get a shout out. $20. Niner red Jell-O shots, man. We get to 100 total. Doing a shotgun. Almost a minute down in the 2-minute Super Chat shot clock. You can extend the show with the Super.
Randy said, how about that fella at Arizona State, Peekaboo or whatever?
Cam Scadaboo, he'd be hard to pass up on in the second or third round. He's a receiver. He's a runner. Shoot against Texas. He threw a touchdown. I like his dual threat ability. I love his balance. I love the strength of his lower half. He's also a NorCal guy. Went to Sacramento State. I believe he grew up a Niner fan. 10 seconds left on the 2-minute Super Chat shot clock. Anybody going to extend it? Cam Scadaboo would be a great fit. I think we should try snatching Jake Majors. Yep, he's the Texas center. Mid to late round guy. How about this too? I have a burner in the chat. Harrison Graham has a burner in the chat. Patrick Seatman has a burner in the chat.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous out here.
People are just impersonating some chat sports legends. All right, we're going to hop on out of here. Thanks to everybody for watching today. 4 segments in the can. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. For Chip, I'm Chase. Off-season coverage going to continue here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. And as always, thanks for supporting everything that we do.